If you're a guy over 40 training at home, you eventually hit a point where training to look good or change your body, that's not enough. On top of the physique change, you also want to feel athletic, be fast, and feel light on your feet again. But if you look up power training on YouTube, what you'll find is videos of 25-year-olds doing high impact box jumps and Olympic lifting. If you try that in your 40s, you'll either blow out your knee, blow out your back, or if you live in a condo or apartment, you get evicted by your downstairs neighbors complaining about the noise and for shaking the entire building. Obviously, both of those are not ideal. So today, what I'm going to show you is exactly how I've added power training into my workouts at 40 to build my athleticism and power back up without getting injured and without getting noise complaints from my neighbors living below me. If you're 40, here's the number one problem or the number one thing we need to think about when thinking about adding power training into our workouts. And here's how this problem shows up. Most guys treat power training or power exercises like an on-off switch. You're either not doing them or you're doing high impact jumps and exercises that are actually quite risky in your 40s. Now, your muscles might be strong enough to launch you in the air, but after 40, your tendons, your ligaments, they take a lot longer to adapt and build up resiliency. Jumping into these high level, these high intensity power exercises can often be too much too soon for your tendons, for your ligaments, which compromises the safety of the exercises. So if you don't build that initial tissue tolerance in your tendons, in your ligaments first, at 40, you're gonna have a higher risk for not just joint pain developing, but also things like tendon or ligament injuries from the repeated impact of jumps or other high intensity power exercises. And that's what we want to avoid. So if the right focus here is not just power, being explosive, and showing that you can be powerful with exercises or in sports or in real life, it's also that you're doing so safely from your joint standpoint. And part of this that all guys overlook with power training is learning to absorb force, not just produce it quickly. So the fix is an exercise like this called a snap down, where you're basically going from standing and dropping yourself in accelerated fashion down into like a squat position. But you're going down fast and catching yourself by contracting your leg muscles. Other ways I do this, I show you here. These are what I've been doing, are doing split jumps. But the only way people think of doing split jumps is jumping up in the air, switching their feet in the air rapidly. We don't start there. Where I started is you do a split jump. You just try and cycle your feet quickly in the air and land stable, right? Land balanced. Come to a complete stop, and then jump again and switch your feet again. And then here I'll show you my phase 2. This is how I progressed it. We don't just go from that initial step in the progression all the way to regular, fast split jumps. As my progression from that, what I did is I go fast for one cycle, and then same thing, balance, stop, absorb force. And this way, we're going to get to the jumping higher. We're going to get to where we're landing very quickly and trying to jump again or produce force in a different way, powerfully, explosively, etc. But we're also considering the adaptation for our tendons, for our ligaments, for our joints, so that they don't start hurting after weeks and months of continuing to do this style of training. Now, the next thing is we've talked a lot already about jumps and being light on our feet as part of power training. It's definitely a part, but it's not the only part. So next, let's get into the different types of power training and why they're important. To build power, you need to understand a simple fitness concept, and that's the force velocity curve. If you imagine a graph, you have force on the y-axis, velocity or speed of movement. And what that simply shows is there's more than one type of power, and we have to train for that if you really want to maximize and get full benefit out of any athletic or power training. Jumping is kind of that very right side. Not a lot of force, but it involves very fast muscle contractions. But what guys never think about is anywhere near the left side of that force velocity curve, where it's very high force or relatively high force, but the speed of movement isn't as fast as a jump. And so if you only train jumps, you're only training one type of power. And there's a whole spectrum of power training or muscle contraction speed that you're missing. Obviously, the answer here to also include exercises that shift towards the left side of that force velocity graph, where there's higher levels of force, more resistance, or overcoming more resistance at a slightly slower speed. So what am I talking about? Here, I'm going to show you some examples here. Dumbbell high pulls, dumbbell wood choppers done explosively for a bit of rotation. Basically, with jumps, you're doing body weight power exercises, right? For these higher force ones where you're not moving as quickly, these are anything that's done weighted. And obviously, depending on the exercise, you can go a little heavier, a little bit lighter. So you can even in this section kind of get a bit more of the spectrum. But overall, just think of it as power exercises that you're trying to do explosively, where you're holding or moving a weight. Other common options here are a band resisted kettlebell swing or a regular kettlebell swing if you have that available to you. Because I do live in an apartment, I can't do jumping, especially with heavy weights where my feet are coming off the ground because I'm trying to be explosive. Now look, adding power training is the missing link to moving well in your 40s. But if you're destroying your body's recovery capacity by eating like crap on the weekends, your tendons won't repair and adapt as quickly as they could, and your performance gains will also stall. So if you struggle to keep your nutrition on track between Fridays and Sundays, grab my free 3-page Busy Guys Weekend Fat Loss Game Plan at the link in the description, so that your weekend lifestyle doesn't wreck all the progress that you're making from Monday to Friday. To truly feel light on your feet, you do eventually need to train true elasticity, that body weight, very fast muscle contraction type of power. But how do you do that being 40 or older, living in a condo or apartment, and planning it all properly so that your knees don't start hurting at some point? The answer is simply that not all jumps are created equal. You might get an image in your mind of things like box jumps, jumping up on a box explosively, jumping down, jumping back up, things you might see in a CrossFit gym or high rocks. And what's often missing is including jumps or jump type movements that are very fast, but also very low to the ground. Now, if they're not very high, why would you do them? The key with these is because they happen very fast, is that they just train, again, a different part of that force velocity curve, kind of towards that extreme far right side, where the movements are very fast. The force isn't that great, but the movements are very fast, even more so than kind of more traditional jump style training. And some examples that I'll throw up here in the video are things like when I do pogo hops. You just bounce up and down on your feet very rapidly. As soon as you feel the ground, you lift your feet back off. Your ankles stay stiff, your knees stay stiff, they don't bend. So you get the benefits of training those types of jumps in terms of athleticism and movement and speed of movement. But you also get, again, benefits in terms of joint safety, joint stiffness for your ankles, and the tendons and ligaments involved specifically around your feet. That's where these types of jumps come in. And now let's put it all together, because we've covered doing jumps, doing power exercises with heavier weights where you're not necessarily jumping. We just talked about doing power exercises where you're jumping, but they might look a little different than the jumps you're used to seeing. And we covered why all of these help produce power in your home workout program, while also thinking about doing it safely as someone who's 40 or older that has to think a little bit more, that has to plan strategically for how to do so without risking your joints hurting over the weeks and months of doing this type of training. So let's think about how we fit this into your workout routine, into your home workout routine, while you still maintain some focus on building and maintaining the muscle definition you also want. Now, there's two main mistakes guys make when they're programming power training into their home workout routine. The first one is putting power exercises towards the end of the workout. When you do power exercises when your body's already fatigued, the risk goes up, not just of getting injured, but also of more wear and tear, of more stress being transferred to your joints. That's mistake number one. And that's something you wouldn't want to do. That's not something I would advise. The other main mistake is thinking you have to turn a whole workout into a power training session. It's just too much high intensity exercise. And I'll clarify something here. Power training and power training exercises, they probably will get your heart rate up quite a bit more than regular strength training exercises, but they won't, beyond that, they won't feel tough on your body. It won't feel like there's more muscle soreness the next day. It won't immediately feel like there's more joint stress. And it's very easy to think you're recovered when you're not, because power training and athletic training mainly targets the nervous system. It's actually very stressful on the nervous system, but we don't perceive that stress in any real tangible way normally. And so instead of stacking all your power exercises in one workout, what I recommend is over your 2, 3, 4 home workouts a week, the first 1, 2, or 3 exercises each day when you're freshest each workout, that is where you put in your power exercises. And what I normally do is put in 1 or 2 of the very fast, rapid body weight jumping type exercises and 1 or 2 of the weighted power training exercises. So it doesn't add too much joint stress to recover from in any one given workout. And then usually each power exercise I'll do for 2 or 3 sets. If anything, I err on doing less, doing 2 sets. So if they're the jumping type of movements I'm talking about, if they're very rapid like pogo hops, I'll go higher reps, anywhere from 10 to 20 in a set. If they're regular jumps, and I'll do those anywhere from usually 5 to 10 reps. And the other way you can think of it is when you're just starting to implement these exercises, err on the side of doing fewer reps per set, 5 or 6 per set. And then as your body adapts, add 1 or 2 more reps per set. And so there, you're building in the progression for your body as your body adapts, just like we would do with regular strength training exercises. So to sum up, adding power training at the age of 40, it's a game of precision. If you're tired of guessing how to balance your fat loss, your muscle building, and your joint health using the limited gear that you have to work with in your apartment or basement or garage, let's fix that. Click the link in the description to book a free 20-minute strategy call with me. We'll audit your current home setup. We'll map out the next 12 months so it can be a pain-free roadmap to getting the physique change and the athleticism and power benefits of power training over the next 12 months. And see if my coaching program is the right fit to help you get there. Grab a slot before they fill up and let's start building that foundation.